Welcome to the third tutorial of the cart to e-comm. This is where we're going to be looking at the end of this tutorial, just kind of a snapshot of what we'll be working on. We've got the quantity of inventory. Now we can actually submit something to our cart and view our images. Obviously you see their category, price, and title, and of course the details. So let's get working on that page we just looked at. We want to start up a new file called product details for the product details module, and we'll import React. And obviously we're going to use effect and use state. So we'll import those and we'll start constructing our generic module. And of course we're going to be doing the exporting as well. And so let's go ahead and implement this within the active module options. So when the active module says product details, then we'll go ahead and show this module. And let's pass on items and show alert. Coincidentally, items is going to be taken out because we're not going to need it. But let's go ahead and import the module to our app. And the reason we're doing it into the app is because we need to utilize app as the umbrella for all the modules. So some of the functionality is going to have to live here in app so it can be distributed amongst the different child modules. And so with that in mind, let's make sure that everything's spelled correctly. And we'll also add it to our nav at the top. So as you can see, just like everything else, we're going to want to kind of save and declare what our active module is. So we can pass those down to our modules so they can set them. So here I pass around a couple ideas. Basically, I need to let it know that which one was selected, and then it can go on to the product details. So here is where I'm going to kind of throw some ideas around as to how that's going to be done. Granted, you can always do it, since this is an href, you can always do it by the URL. So you'd push the parameter of the product ID into the URL, and it would work. Or you could pass it through a function. Now the URL, keep in mind, if you do that, it's going to refresh the page. So you might be careful about doing that. It can be helpful, but granted, refreshing the page is a lot to ask, and it's not necessary. So we'll toy around with that idea, as you can see what I do here, and then I kind of change my mind. But we'll walk through the steps so you can kind of see my process, and let you know. Usually when you're writing stuff, the first idea sometimes isn't the best, sometimes it is. But if you have to double back because you changed your mind, don't feel that that's just you're the only one that does that. Everybody does that. Refactoring is, honestly, I think that's just part of development. So if you spend, 10 to 20 minutes or maybe even an hour, I've spent over a day, maybe a week going the wrong direction and had to stop just because it was just too much work, or I found a better option. So bear with me as I test out these ideas. And as you can see, my passing of the thing is an object, so that's clearly not going to work. So you're passing an entire object of just details, name, so on and so forth with price. So that's just not going to work out. You would have to be very specific and have a string up there. So I'm discovering what exactly I'm going to do here with my console.log. Kind of get a closer look at what I'm dealing with. So I'll just kind of go through the long route so I can get to where we're going. clear out the data. So here we go. As you can see, it's not really having it. It refreshed the page, so I couldn't even see the object itself within my console log. So I'm discovering that is not the best way to go about this. Yeah. And we don't even need that cart anymore. We're going to basically use some of the functionality from the cart module, but that page is not going to be around anymore because that was from my old. Okay, so we're using it's the whole. I'm realizing it's the whole object. It's not just you couldn't just do like a name or a number. You'd have to apply it just as if we were reading JSON. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and take a close look at the JSX I used for my older project and kind of see if it's going to be helpful. What I end up doing is bringing in pieces of it, piece by piece, that we are going to use, and then things like the review module for each product that will be brought in later. So we'll just start piecing this thing together from a tried and true kind of project that's already working. I'm just gathering up the information to see where I start. Okay, so we're going to end up doing rows, which are already living in a container. We're going to do some padding, or the margins on the bottom at 5. I don't know what B5 doesn't mean anything, so it would be MB5. Anyway, as you can see here, I'm doing props item. This will not work because we're already passing through. So what it is going to turn out to be is selected item and the item name, and then be, props selected item images. So we'll move this over to the App.js so we can tell all the other modules what has been selected as well. And then we'll just import this so that it can work across the two modules. Yeah, so clearly it's not going to work. Okay, after some refactoring, this is our solution. We're going to go ahead and just make sure that the item name is valid. So now, as you see it comes in here. It's just not necessarily as pretty. It does have the images, but they're not lined up or anything. So let's go ahead and work on that image library for each product. So we know that it's now actually working. That was kind of the hard part. Now this is a little trial and error to kind of work on the look and feel and make sure that our images are being represented nice. Yeah, now they're all kind of laying out. That's correct. They need to be horizontal. So let's work with a little CSS for background color, height, the overflow. Let's put a border in there. We'll just start working on an active one as well, so we'll have a little color in it. So it's getting closer. You can see the active one on the left, but the CSS clearly is off still. We'll just use the console log to kind of play around with the CSS and kind of see what exactly we can do on the fly. There we go. It's the absolute position is they're messing us up. So that's something that I can fix with just my own CSS. It's not through Bootstrap. This is an easy fix. So we'll just stop doing the absolutes when they're not living on top of each other. All right, and then we'll start working more on our grid system, and we'll bring out the rest of the items, or the information for the item. More importantly, like the details, and we'll be putting in together a submit button to submit our quantity of product to the cart. And here we'll put in the image, and we'll be bringing in the image we're bringing in is actually the active image. So whichever one we choose from up above, so there you go. There, our image gallery is now working. And for our details, we can obviously type in the object portion for our details, which is not going to be too difficult. There's our options here. We've got category, we got details. So I'm just kind of closing in on our options and what I named everything, make sure everything's spelled correctly. All right, so we've got our price in here, and our category, and of course our details. Now we'd like to make a select menu with the correct amount of quantity. So we only have so many of each item in the inventory, so the select quantity will only go up to that number. So that it can't, if you have 30 of them and somebody wants to buy 35, they won't be able to. They won't have an option to. So what I'm going to do is just build out a quantity list number that changes based on whatever the selected item is. So as it runs through and loads, it's going to fill this quantity list array with numbers. And as long as those numbers basically reach the top amount of quantity we have in inventory for this product, then we're done here. We don't have to make it go any further. And then we'll map through this list of numbers for our select menu item down at the bottom. So basically every time this page loads, that number will be counted up again per item. And here's where I throw down my map to go through each of the array items. So each option will be represented as one of the numbers. Yeah. Yeah, the details I got, they're kind of a wreck. They've got all sorts of weird characters in them and stuff. So, but that's kind of what to expect. You really won't be responsible for what people are going to be putting into here. This is all content. So, I guess it's kind of up to them what their text looks like. If they throw weird characters in, and then they throw weird characters in, trust me, that's what people do when you let them put their own content in. Is they put stuff in that just really I wouldn't personally put in, but that's what they do. So just be expecting that. So we'll do a little bit of tidying up with the text capitalized, which is a utility from Bootstrap. I want to make sure that these things, even if the user put it in their content. All right, more refactoring. So let's take a look and see how we can line things up. It looks like the padding really, we can kind of do some utility work on the padding and some CSS work, and we can kind of line everything up. First off, I want to do kind of a specific class just for these images so that we can get a really good hold on what we want them to look like. So bear with me while I kind of make a little bit of adjustments to the padding. See how it's lining up now correctly. All right, so it seems to be lining up correctly. And we'll just go ahead and put the category title and the $sign. We'll capitalize it so that it looks a little more like you know what you're looking at. We'll do some nice separation for our content details. And let's get together and put that add to cart button in here. And we're going to make it a green one, so we'll do button success. The success signifies kind of the user to this will move you forward, as opposed to a red one where it's kind of like a warning or are you sure you want to do this? So the colors do have a consistent theme to them. That's a guarantee that you need to do that for your user's sake. And we'll go ahead and kind of put together a function that basically finds out what was already in the cart, and then we'll add our new items to the cart. And since it's just going into the cart for a calculation, we don't need everything. We're basically just going to need what the product is and the price. And then we'll also be, in the future, we'll be putting timestamps and a little more information on there about the individual that's making the purchase. So we're back on app. We are putting together a quantity of purchasing. So within our App.js, we're going to have what item was chosen and how many will be the data we're collecting from the parent App.js. So it can be distributed amongst the cart, and the product details page will be the one to set purchase quantity. And so we'll go ahead, and what's going to happen is I'm going to take this on change out of the select menu, because that's not necessary. We're going to need to put it into the submit cart. And eventually, once it's going into the select cart, it's going to be on click, not change. So I'm going to have to come through and fix that in a second. You'll see me wonder why it doesn't work, and it's because it says on change. So fun stuff. But I need to put that function in here on the App.js. So really the product details is just an extension to show you a little bit of stuff, a little bit of what's going on and what you've selected. It doesn't really do much. All the functionality from product details, like these are all things that are on the app. the app is ultimately pulling the strings, for better use of words, for what's going to be on the product details page. No, so like when we do the set purchase quantity though, it's going to default to 1 because you can't buy 0. So that's going to be why it says 1 there for the initial state. And we'll just change this to be a little more relevant. Okay, so here we go with our const submit to cart. Let's go ahead and write the function out, everything we want to do with the cart. Cart list is where all the items will be stored. It's going to be an object so that they can just pile up from multiple selections, and then we'll have a cart page or a cart module shortly where we can implement all of our purchases. So we'll build a temp cart so that we can manipulate it and then put it back together. So the purchase quantity is going to be a number of how many times we iterate through. And from here we can just push. Eventually we're going to have a timestamp, but we don't have it yet. So let's just go ahead and present it, and I'll show it in our local storage. Basically our session storage, I want to put it in there first to kind of show you what our data is going to look like. And this data eventually is going to make its way to a purchasing log. So we're just going to get it prepped up, and since this is just a tutorial, I want to show you what the data looks like. And so I'll be storing it with item name and item price. That's all really you need. And keep in mind, we don't need to do items with an iteration of selected item. That's going to be a problem, so I'll have to switch that here in a second. And the submit to cart function does need to go to the product details. And we're going to realize very fast that our submit cart's no good because onChange does nothing. So we'll swing back in and put on click. And make sure that it's props because it's brought in from the parent module. And obviously we can't do items, it's just going to be selected items. There we are. Yeah. Because it's not an iterable object, it only has one thing in it. So as you can see now, we can go ahead and take a look at what our data looks like. I'm just kind of putting everything together in my head. What I'm going to do here in a second is put together a show alert so that first off, we're well aware of the submit cart that it worked. So there's the cart list, but it's still an object. It hasn't been converted. So we'll just do a little bit of tweaking, and then you'll see kind of where we're going. We need to make sure that it's a string, or that it won't be saved correctly in the storage. And let's clear out our data and just kind of do it one more time. There we go. You see how it has the purchase. Right now it actually only has 2 of them. It should be 4. So we'll go ahead and do a little bit of checking to see why it's only doing it twice. Yeah, see, I'm just verifying that that's correct, and it is. I was expecting 4, got 2. And we'll try it one more time. And just checking to see if everything else is working. Let's try to buy 6 of them. It looks like it only worked once, so definitely a problem. And let's just go ahead and see what purchase quantity is giving it, because it certainly doesn't look like it's working. And we'll make sure that it's also a number as well. Yeah, so it's definitely a number, but it's only saying that it has 1. So let's go check and see why the value of that selected object is just 1. Oh, that's selected menu item. So we'll just declare the variable here. We'll call it number. We'll tell it what selector we're looking for. We'll be real precise as to what we're telling it. We want the value of this selected item quantity. And we want it to be called number. And we'll go ahead and iterate through the value of number. And let's go ahead and see what it looks like. Saved locally. I'm going to get 3 of these. Let's go here to make sure that we're getting them correct. Now that's a problem. It's coming in as a string. Yeah, okay, so we got all 3. All 3 did work. That's good. But we weren't really convinced because it didn't tell us. So my next move is to kind of clean this up. As you can see, I've gotten some padding, and I censored some stuff. And I also want to show you that I've just kind of doing a little more cleanup here. And let's go ahead and try to submit something. I'm buying 14 of these, and there's I put in a show alert. And so that's up and working now. We'll see you next time.